Nobody was supposed to see what the cameras picked up inside that passage. And once you understand what Irish archaeologists actually found when they sent equipment through a moving stone door that has no business moving at all, you will understand exactly why the footage was almost deleted before anyone outside that research team had a chance to see it. But it was not deleted, and that changes everything. This story starts the way a lot of impossible stories start. Not with a scientist, not with a government program, not with a funded archaeological expedition. It starts with a man named Kieran Doyle, a 38-year-old structural engineer from Limerick, who was killing time on a long film weekend in County Meath. Doyle had driven out to Loughcrew, the ancient megalithic complex in the Boyne Valley, not because he had any particular interest in archaeology, but because his girlfriend had read about it in a travel piece and wanted to see the cairns. He had brought his camera kit, the way he brings it everywhere out of habit, not expectation. He photographs buildings professionally, and old stone structures are easy, reliable subject matter. He had been to Loughcrew once before as a teenager and remembered it as windy and unremarkable. What he did not remember, and what the tourist board photographs do not show you, is what happens to cairn tea at sunrise on the very specific type of morning. The date was the 5th of November. It was early enough in the season that the sun sat low and direct on the horizon. Doyle had set up his tripod inside the main passage chamber to photograph the way the light fell across the curbstones at the entrance. Standard architectural photography. He was watching his exposure settings, not the wall. His camera was rolling on a wide shot when the stone moved, not crumbled, not shifted by erosion or ground subsidence. A single stone slab on the interior rear wall, roughly the dimensions of a wardrobe estimated later at somewhere between 15 and 18 tons, rotated inward on what appeared to be a central, vertical axis, like a revolving door, smoothly and without sound, exposing a passage behind it that the existing archaeological record said with complete confidence did not exist. Doyle's camera caught 23 seconds of the opening before the stone returned to its original position. The gap was just wide enough for a person to pass through sideways. He stood in that chamber for a long time before he looked back at the footage. By the following evening, the clip had been viewed nearly 4 million times. Loughcrew, a site that ordinarily draws a few thousand visitors a year, was suddenly trending in 12 countries simultaneously. One of the people who watched it was Dr. Effa Sheridan, a senior archaeologist with the National Museum of Ireland, who had spent the better part of 2 decades working on megalithic sites across the Boyne Valley corridor. Sheridan has led 3 separate excavation programs at Loughcrew. She has handled the decorated stones, cataloged the passage art, and overseen radiocarbon dating on bone deposits found in the chambers. She knows that site the way you know your own house. When a colleague sent her the clip without comment at 11:30 on a Wednesday night, she watched it once and assumed it was doctored. She watched it a second time and started looking for the edit. On the 3rd viewing, she picked up her phone and called the colleague back. She told him to meet her at the site at 6:00 a.m. Here is what made Sheridan so certain the footage demanded a physical response, even before she had verified it was authentic. The geometry was wrong. Cairn T at Loughcrew is one of the most extensively documented megalithic structures in the entire country. Every stone in that passage has been measured, photographed, and recorded. The rear wall of the main chamber, the wall where the stone in Doyle's footage appeared to move, has been mapped in millimeter-accurate photogrammetry by 3 separate research programs. According to every piece of data ever collected on that structure, that wall is a continuous, solid arrangement of orthostats, upright stone slabs fitted together with no gap, no hinge point, and no cavity behind them. Doyle's footage showed a 23-second window into a space that by every measurement ever taken was not there. Sheridan arrived at the site before Doyle did. She walked straight to the rear chamber wall and stood in front of it with a hand torch. No gap, no seam, no crack she hadn't seen 100 times before. From the outside in the gray November morning light, nothing looked different. The The stones were exactly where they had always been. She pressed her palm flat against the surface. Cold, solid, immovable. She stepped back and looked at the full face of the wall for a long time. Then she retrieved her ground-penetrating radar unit from the car and started scanning. The initial results took less than 4 minutes to come back. Sheridan ran the scan a second time because she thought the first pass had been contaminated by signal bounce off the decorated curbstones nearby. The second pass produced the same image. Behind the rear wall of Cairn T's main chamber, in a space that every previous survey had registered as solid glacial till and bedrock, there was a passage. It ran approximately 19 meters into the hill, approximately 1 meter wide and 2 meters in height, perfectly straight. And it terminated at its far end in what the radar return could only describe as a chamber that nobody had ever measured because nobody had ever known it was there. Sheridan sat down on the grass outside the entrance passage and didn't say anything for several minutes. What she understood even before the full implications had settled was this: Loughcrew has been under professional archaeological scrutiny for over 150 years. The site was first excavated in the 1860s. It has been resurveyed, re-examined, and reinterpreted by generation after generation of Irish archaeologists. Ground-penetrating radar was used on the site as recently as 2019, and in all of that time, across all of that work, nobody had ever detected this passage. Nobody had ever found evidence of this chamber, which meant one of two things. Either every previous scan had missed it, technically possible, but requiring a staggering and systematic failure across multiple independent programs, or the passage was not there before now. Dr. Sheridan contacted Dr. Ronan Mac Gilla-Creost, a geophysicist at University College Dublin with a specialization in subsurface imaging of prehistoric earthworks. That same afternoon, Mac Gilla-Creost arrived 2 days later with a second-generation seismic tomography rig equipment capable of producing three-dimensional models of what is buried inside a hill, rather than just a flat cross-section. It is the kind of hardware normally deployed for deep geological surveys, not megalithic archaeology. He needed 1 hour to complete his scan. He spent the next 3 rerunning it. The chamber at the end of the passage measured 6 meters diameter. The walls and ceiling were not raw earth or till. The radar return indicated dressed stone with shaped and smooth surfaces, consistent with deliberate construction. The floor was flat, and at the center of the room, the tomographic imaging showed a single object, a stone basin. Now megalithic passage tombs in Ireland do sometimes contain stone basins. Newgrange has one. Knowth has several. They are documented features believed by most archaeologists to have held cremated human remains during ritual use of the monuments. Finding a basin in a chamber at Loughcrew would, in most circumstances, be an important but not extraordinary discovery. This basin was not ordinary. The object at the center of that hidden chamber measured 2 meters in diameter and 1 meter in depth. That makes it, by a considerable margin, the largest stone basin ever detected at any megalithic site in Ireland. But the size was not what stopped Mac Gilla-Creost mid-sentence when he was describing his findings. It was the thermal imaging. Dr. Cleodina Ní Faughline, a specialist in thermal analysis and archaeometric dating from Trinity College Dublin, had joined the team by the end of the first week. Her role was straightforward: use thermal cameras to map heat distribution across the monument and identify any anomalous warmth signatures that might indicate water ingress route systems or recent human activity inside a supposedly sealed space. What she found in that hidden chamber was not water ingress. The stone basin was warm, not ambient, not residual from the surrounding environment. The thermal camera was showing a steady 31 degrees Celsius, concentrated at the center of the basin and radiating outward in consistent concentric rings toward the chamber walls. Outside in the November air, the temperature was 6 degrees. The surrounding hill at the depths they were scanning was matching ambient ground temperature at around 8 degrees. The basin was sitting at 31 degrees Celsius inside a sealed stone chamber inside a 5,200-year-old hill, and it had been doing so based on the absolute thermal equilibrium of the surrounding rock, which showed no gradient of recent heat introduction for what Nephilim estimated could only be described as an extremely long time. She recalibrated, she repositioned, she borrowed a second camera from the geophysics kit. She scanned from 4 different angles through the stone and the bedrock above. Every single reading came back identical. 31 degrees steady, radiating outward constant. There is no geological mechanism that produces or sustains localized heat of that magnitude inside cold limestone and glacial till. There is no volcanic activity beneath the Boyne Valley. There are no hot springs, no geothermal features, no known underground water systems of the right temperature within 40 kilometers of the site. Whatever was generating that heat was generating it independently, without any external energy source that the team could identify. One of the more unsettling aspects of Nephilim's thermal data was this. 31 degrees Celsius is the precise surface temperature of the human body, not core temperature, surface temperature, what your skin reads when measured externally. She noted this in her field log without further comment. The monitoring equipment the team had placed along the outer walls of the passage picked up something else on the third night. A sound, or more accurately, a vibration transmitting through the stonework from deep inside the hill. Low frequency below the threshold of human hearing, but well within the detection range of their seismographic sensors. It was rhythmic, regular. It repeated every 5 seconds without variation, across a continuous 9-hour recording window. One of the junior researchers on the team, when the signal was converted to an audible frequency and played back through speakers, said it sounded like breathing, slow, deep resting. The senior researchers did not include that description in their formal notes, but none of them contradicted it either. By the end of the second week, word had reached official channels. The Office of Public Works, which manages Ireland's national monuments, sent a representative to the site. The National Monument Service followed within 24 hours. There were meetings in a temporary site office, a converted shipping container in the car park, and Sheridan later described those meetings as some of the most uncomfortable professional conversations of her career. The official position that emerged from those meetings was that the site required a full heritage impact assessment before any further investigative work could be conducted. That assessment would take a minimum of several months. In the meantime, the affected area of the cairn was to be treated as structurally unstable, and access would be restricted. The monitoring equipment was removed. The seismographic sensors were packed into cases. The thermal cameras were pointed elsewhere, but not before Nephilim ran one final scan. She had noticed something in her thermal data from the previous day that she had not been able to explain. A small irregularity in the heat signature at the northern edge of the basin, a patch of slightly lower temperature about the size of a dinner plate, sitting in the field of consistent warmth like a shadow. She had assumed it was a calibration artifact, a patch of stone that was marginally thicker at that point, and therefore slower to transmit the heat. On the final scan, that shadow had moved. It was now at the southern edge of the basin. Not a different instrument reading, not drift in the calibration. The same anomaly in the same thermal field in a measurably different position, in a sealed underground room that nothing had entered and nothing had left. She ran the scan 3 more times in quick succession. The shadow was in the same new position on every reading. She compared those readings to recordings from 5 days earlier. The movement was clear, unambiguous, and impossible to explain through any thermal physics she could apply to the situation. Something inside that basin had shifted. Nephilim packed her own equipment that afternoon and drove back to Dublin without speaking to anyone from the official oversight team. She has not publicly commented on her findings since the site was closed to independent researchers. Sheridan submitted a full written account of the team's discoveries to the Royal Irish Academy 3 weeks after the site was officially restricted. The Academy acknowledged receipt. No response has been published. She then did something unusual for a National Museum archaeologist. She contacted 3 journalists, one in Dublin, one in London, one in New York, and gave each of them the same encrypted file containing the ground-penetrating radar imagery, the seismic recordings, and the thermal scan data from the final day. She told each journalist the same thing. She was not asking them to publish it. She was asking them to hold it, to keep it somewhere safe to know it existed. Kieran Doyle has posted nothing further to social media since the original clip. He removed his public profiles from 2 platforms in December. He gave one interview to a podcast recorded in a private location, in which he said 2 things worth repeating. The first was that when the stone rotated and the passage opened in front of him, the air that came through it was warm, not stuffy, not damp, the way you would expect from a sealed underground space. Warm and dry, like the air above a fire that has been burning low for a very long time. The second was that he did not hear anything come through the opening, no sound at all. What he noticed instead was that the flame on the votive candle someone had left at the entrance to the outer passage, 3 chambers away, around 2 corners, completely out of line of sight, went out at the exact moment the stone moved. No draft, no air movement, no physical explanation. It simply stopped burning. When the stone rotated back into place 23 seconds later, the candle lit itself again. He said he did not include that detail in any public account because he knew how it would sound. He spoke it out loud exactly once on that single podcast recording, and then he did not say it again. Lough Crew is open to visitors. More than 12,000 people walk those hills every year. They climb Carnbane East to reach Cairn-T. They duck through the entrance passage. They look at the spirals and solar wheels and chevrons carved into the orthostats 5,000 years ago. Many of them stand with their backs to the rear chamber wall, the wall that, according to Kieran Doyle's footage and Aoife Sheridan's radar data, occasionally opens and they take photographs. They do not know about the 19-meter passage behind that wall. They do not know about the chamber or the basin or the thermal signature that holds steady at 31 degrees Celsius inside cold stone. They do not know about the 5-second rhythm that the seismographic sensors recorded for 9 unbroken hours. The rhythm one researcher compared to slow breathing. They do not know about the shadow in the thermal field that moved to the other side of the basin between one scan and the next. They do not know that the stone behind them has jaws at least once on record, and possibly more times than that. Before anyone was there to film, it swung open like a door on a hinge, and that whatever is warm inside that hill has been warm for a very long time and is still warm now and is still there. The real question, the one that keeps Sheridan awake, the one Nephilan drove away from without answering, is not about the passage or the chamber or even the basin. The question is what a megalithic structure built by Neolithic people 5,200 years ago was actually built around. Because those people did not dig that passage. The radar imaging confirms the passage walls are not built stone or cut earth. They are formed from the same unbroken bedrock as the surrounding hill. That passage was already there when Cairn-T was constructed on top of it. Those people built their monument with all of its precisely aligned solar geometry above something that already existed in the ground beneath them, which means they knew it was there and they built a door to it. And the question nobody in that site office in the car park in County Meath was willing to ask out loud was whether the door was designed to keep people out or to keep something else in. The warmth behind that wall is still there. The rhythm is still recording even if the instruments that measured it have been removed. The shadow is somewhere in that basin at whatever edge it moved to before the cameras were packed away. And somewhere in 3 journalists' encrypted files, the evidence for all of it is sitting waiting for the moment someone decides the public has a right to know. Irish archaeologists actually found when a stone door swung open on a cold November morning in the Boyne Valley. Do you think they will ever open that passage properly? Tell me what you think in the comments.